You will die. And that is the most liberating truth you will ever face. While the world does everything it can to deny this, hiding from wrinkles, clinging to youth, distracting itself with noise, the Stoic walks straight toward it. No masks, no fear, no illusion. Because only those who look death in the eye can ever learn how to live with clarity. Most people avoid this thought like poison. They drown in tasks, chase empty ambitions, scroll endlessly, all to forget that they are fading, slowly, silently, into the one truth no one escapes. But the Stoic warrior moves in the opposite direction. He rises each morning with death at his side. He trains with it, speaks with it, walks with it, not as an enemy, but as a mentor, because death is not the destroyer of life, it is the measure that gives it weight. Epictetus said it plainly, it's not death that should be feared, but the fear of dying. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every day, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. And if you live as though time is endless, then maybe your soul is already slipping away. This video is not about despair. It's about awakening. About turning fear into power. About facing the end with strength, and walking through this life with eyes wide open. So take a breath. Because death is watching. Not to punish you, but to ask you one question. Will you look away, or will you face it like a warrior? Most people live like they'll never die. They push conversations to tomorrow, bury their dreams under excuses, waste their energy on arguments that don't matter, all while pretending they can bargain with time. But time doesn't bargain, it just slips away. And every moment you try to ignore this truth is a moment life quietly steals from you. The Stoics never saw death as a curse. They saw it as liberation. Because once you embrace your own finitude, you start living with urgency, with focus, with truth. When you truly grasp that your end could come at any time, everything shifts. Words become sacred. Silence gains weight. The smallest act becomes an offering to the present. Death, to the Stoic, is not a thief. It is a guide. It whispers, stop wasting your life. Stop pretending you have forever. Begin now. Live like someone who honors the finite. And once you do, fear begins to dissolve. You become sharper, more intentional, more alive. You choose your battles wisely. You guard your time fiercely. You stop bending to social masks or shallow rituals. You no longer tolerate what weakens you. And paradoxically, this is how peace begins. Not by clinging to control, but by recognizing how little of it we ever had. You begin to live, not as someone chasing immortality, but as someone ready to die, with nothing left unsaid. No regrets, no resentment. Just a steady breath, a clean conscience, and the quiet courage to say, I lived fully before the end arrived. Marcus Aurelius wrote about his own death every single day. Not out of fear or morbidity, but out of wisdom. Because he understood something most people refuse to see. If you forget you're going to die, you forget how to live. We're surrounded by distractions that blur the truth. Comfort numbs us, noise shields us. But when you remember that tomorrow is not promised, everything sharpens. You stop tolerating the unbearable. You stop postponing what matters. You begin to move with clarity and intention. Meditating on death is not dark, it's cleansing. It humbles the ego that believes there will always be more time. It silences the pride that thinks the clock can be ignored. The Stoics called it memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a threat, but as a sacred invitation to be present. Imagine starting each morning with the thought, today could be my last. That doesn't create despair. It creates urgency, tenderness, focus. You speak more carefully, you love more fully. You stop wasting your soul on things that crumble in the end. This thought doesn't weigh you down. It lifts the fog. It strips away the noise. It brings your attention to the only place it ever truly belongs. Now. That's why sages kept skulls beside their beds, not to be morbid, but to stay awake. Death is inevitable, but dying with nothing left undone, that's a choice. And that choice begins the moment you stop acting like you have time. You can't control death, you never could. But that doesn't stop people from trying. They fight time, they chase guarantees, they obsess over outcomes, appearances, opinions, anything to distract from the truth that none of it is ever truly theirs. The Stoics knew this illusion well, and they tore it down at the root. You don't get to choose how or when death arrives. You don't get to rewrite how others remember you. You don't get to outlive the limits of the body. But you do get to choose how you live in the face of that. And that choice is everything. Epictetus taught one simple law. Peace begins when you separate what's within your power from what isn't. Death will come when it must. That part is out of your hands. But how it finds you, that's your responsibility. Will it find you desperate and unprepared? Or calm, grounded, steady in your soul? Every day you cling to control is a day you forfeit your inner strength. You become reactive, anxious, afraid to let go. But the Stoic stops grasping. He stands still while others scramble. He prepares while others deny. Because the Stoic understands the paradox. The more you surrender to what you can't control, the more control you gain over yourself. And in a world ruled by uncertainty, self-mastery is the only form of real power. You don't prepare for death in the final hour. You prepare for it in how you live. In the quiet moments when no one is watching. In the choices you make when ease is an option, but you choose what's hard. The Stoics believed that every act of self-discipline is a rehearsal for the end. When you embrace discomfort willingly, you let parts of your weakness die before your body ever does. When you rise early, strengthen your body, control your reactions, and stay silent when you could strike, you're building the kind of soul that doesn't collapse when the end arrives. Seneca wrote that we must train for death throughout our lives, not with fear, but with intention, not by obsessing over it, but by forging character that stands tall when everything else falls away. A man who has practiced loss is not destroyed when something is taken. He's already let go 1,000 times. He's rehearsed grief. He's trained his heart to surrender. And when death comes, it doesn't feel foreign. It feels like a familiar guest arriving to honor the life you've lived. The world tells you to seek comfort, to avoid all pain, to silence fear with pleasure and distraction. But the Stoic chooses the opposite. He lives like a warrior on borrowed time, every representative in silence, every temptation resisted, every emotion mastered. That is his preparation, and when death finally stands at his door, he won't flinch, not because he is fearless, but because he's ready. At the edge of death, what haunts you most is not what you lost, it's what you left unsaid, what you left unfinished. The Stoics warned us. We live as if we'll always have another chance, but we won't. There will be a final sunrise, a final conversation, a last word exchange between you and someone you love. And you won't know it's the last until it's already gone. That's why the Stoic lives with sacred urgency. He speaks his truth while there's still time. He forgives while hearts are still beating. He expresses love, not because he's sentimental, but because he's awake. Awake to how fast everything can vanish. Every moment you hesitate is a moment you may never get back. Every truth you swallow is a risk. The risk of never. You don't know when death will come for you, or for those around you. So don't wait. Say what needs to be said. Do what must be done. Leave no apology unsaid. Leave no love hidden. Leave no strength buried. Live today as if it were your final act. Not in panic, but in purpose. Not in fear, but in fullness. And when death comes, let it find you empty. Not of meaning, but of regret. Let it find a life fully spoken, fully offered, fully lived. That is what it means to die like a Stoic. Not with unfinished songs, but with a soul that has already sung its last note with grace. Death is not a punishment, it's not an enemy, it's a mirror. And when you dare to look into it with honesty, it shows you everything that remains when the noise is stripped away. Not your status, not your possessions, only your choices, your character, your truth. The Stoics didn't reflect on death to become numb, they did it to stay awake. Awake to what really matters, to who they were becoming, and to the shortness of life that makes every act sacred. You've been given this breath, this fragile moment between your first cry and your final silence. What will you do with it? Will you spend it chasing illusions, numbing the truth, hiding behind distractions? Or will you rise now and meet the end with your eyes wide open? Face death like a warrior. Don't beg for more time. Don't carry your strength to the grave. Don't die with your potential still buried beneath fear. Look the end in the eye and say, I lived. I gave. I stood. I fell and rose again. I loved fully. I died without regret. If this message struck something in you, don't let it fade. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for numbers, but as a vow to keep walking this path. The path of strength, presence, and truth. And if any part of this reached your soul, leave a comment below. What line spoke to you the most? What truth are you now ready to face? Because when the end finally comes, and it will, your soul will ask just one question. Did I live fully before I died? Let the answer be yes.